Hey everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood ink slinger. This week, just a few things that I want to touch about or talk about. Again, the first thing will always be accountability, which is, I want to talk about the progress, where I'm at, how far I've gotten. Second thing I want to talk about this week is about the personas, right? The characters, the number of characters, because whenever you read a book, you always wonder why that many, how those names. Well, correction. Maybe you don't always wonder, but I know I do. I'm curious, and I was like, well, you might as well share it with someone because if it piques your interest, guaranteed it's going to pique the interest of other people, right? And they'll probably be as curious enough and be like, hey, if you're putting out that information, I'd like to know. And then the third thing is we are currently cooking up an interview with the missus. I've always found it intriguing, and I can't say surprising, but I've always found it interesting that it's really hard. I I don't want to say impossible because maybe I don't know where to look or how to Google it or search for it, but it's really hard to find interviews of the spouses to famous authors and writers. And maybe not, and they don't have to be super famous, right? You don't have to be Stephen King or, anyone at that level, James Patterson or what have you. But sometimes you wonder, like, what quirks, does that writer have? Male or female, doesn't matter. I'm always, because creatives, we sometimes we just do things differently, and who better to talk about that than our spouses, right? And obviously, I'm not I'm not looking for dirt or tea, but I'm just curious because I'm like, they probably notice things that their spouses do that might help them write, that maybe it's just something so natural in them, or a habit that they've built over so many years that to them it's second nature, and they don't think anything of it. They're like, oh, I didn't think that meant anything, right? And that lack of knowledge. I mean, maybe that will inspire someone, right? Maybe someone can say, hey, they do that, I do that too. I never, and then they'll think, man, maybe I can write. Maybe I can do something if they behave accordingly like I do. Why can't I do something like that? All right, so the progress, and sorry for that long speech there. I'm finally done with chapter 7. It's taken me a few weeks, and honestly, I'm really grateful for having started this podcast, because for the last, I want to say 3 weeks, I've been saying, hey, I'm on chapter 7. And I'm thinking, man, I don't. Do I really want to keep saying I'm on chapter 7 for like the next couple of months? I'm like, I'd be too embarrassed, because then I'm thinking, the viewers are thinking, are you just writing a sentence a day? I mean, like, that's not gonna. And I haven't been. I've been. So my goal, my ideal goal, my gold standard is 2 pages a day. There have been very few days that I can count on one hand that I've hit that goal. However, I have been hitting within a page to a page and a half. I think my average would probably be a page and a quarter, maybe just a little below that. Again, that's better than a sentence at a time, right? Or even a paragraph. And then there have been days where I just come up with a paragraph because and maybe that's to my that might be one of my downfalls, that I do a little too much research on some days. But I don't just want to put out something. So I think some things deserve a little more deeper thought, like a more intricate search. Because again, it's fiction. I get it. It's fake. And I could probably say red is blue, the sky is upside down. But I just I feel like if it isn't grounded in some realism, it won't have the same impact, and it might not be as enjoyable, because then you're like, well, you don't have anything, you don't have any parameters, so you can draw outside of whatever you want and make it work for you, right? But I don't. I think when you have that kind of story, I don't think it's as intriguing, right? You have to, everyone has to have limitations. There's some things that you can't do, because if you can do whatever you want, it's not. Again, I know it's fake, right? So I hate to say that it's not real, but I guess, and even more than that, it's probably not going to be really interesting, which is really what I don't know who I heard this, or I think I read this somewhere, and I can't remember who wrote it, but they said, if you're gonna write a book, write the book that you would like to read. And I'm like, man, I really want to make a book about about military espionage with Christian flair to it, right? And what does that look like? Is that possible, right? So now let's get off of that random tangent. All right, let's talk about the characters. All right, so this happened in 2021. I was watching the movie with Michael B. Jordan, Without Remorse, Tom Clancy movie. Well, Tom Clancy book turned to movie. And for some reason, I can't tell you why. I something in my mind told me, search how heat, not temperature wise, but spiciness, spice wise, search how heat is measured, right? So when I Googled it in 2021, I found a chart and it had the acronym SHU on it, right? SHU stands for Scoville Heat Unit, which is how they measure heat. Okay, and in that chart, if you can see here, there was 13 peppers. At the top, so the top one isn't the pepper itself. The top one is actually pure capsaicin. So that's my understanding, is that's what creates that sensation of burning, of spiciness, right? So pure capsaicin is measured at 16 million SHUs, right? Scoville units. Now, so I thought, okay, so capsaicin, great. I'll use the first three letters. That'll be the captain. So that'll be his nickname or moniker, whatever you will, right? And then the next hottest one is Pepper X, right? Again, that's my not mine. That's Schaefer Koenig's second in command, X, right? And then you go down the list, and then obviously the I don't want to say the weakest one, but I guess the one that's not as spicy, the habanero, right? That's where I got the nickname Nero. I'm pointing at it, right? That's where I got the nickname Nero, and I was like, well, because that's the one with the least spice. Well, I was like, I'll use spice kind of like their time and tenure, right? Their experience level, their proficiency. I mean, yeah, I think that's a good word, because obviously the longer you've been doing something, the more proficient you get it at. So let's say the heat level is also the proficiency level for me, right? Okay, so I got the characters, right? Dragon, Reaper, Ghost. There's one here called Barrick. The number 7 came up like in 4, maybe 5 different peppers. So I was like, well, if you don't use the number 7 as someone's nickname, there's something wrong with you, right? Okay, so I got the team. And then I'm like, well, I built the team based off of the peppers that come under this heating scale, right? Which is the SHU. Well, then that's going to be the team's name, right? And I was like, well, what? This one, I felt the first letter S for me was really easy, because I'm like, well, when I think of S, I think of special forces, right? So, all right, special. And then when I think of U, I think of unit. So special something unit. And I was like, well, don't make it anything with heat or hot, because that's just lame. Special hot unit, like, no, this I want this to be real. And then I for some reason I thought of the word harmony. I'm like, okay, because in my mind, right, in my world, as my creative juices are flowing, I was like, so this team, their purpose is to keep harmony within the world. How harmony? Sometimes evil gets out of hand, and obviously in my Christian, in this Christian novel, obviously it's going to be spiritual warfare, right? Again, still going up against teams of people and all that, but I was like, okay, so special harmony unit does not sound good, and then I looked at how the other ways you can use the word harmony, and then I came up with the word. I didn't come up with the word harmonization. I found the word harmonization as I was looking for harmony. I was like, okay, special harmonization unit, the SHU, the SHU. So that's how I came up with the characters. The names are of people that I have had the privilege of serving with in the military. Some names are of police officers that I know and I love and cherish very much because of the sacrifices that they do here on the homeland, right? They're basically soldiers put on uniform, but they don't have to go overseas and fight, and it's scary out there, and I wanted to give them a shout out too, because it's a dangerous job, and kudos to the people that have that calling, and to the families that bear that cross day in and day out. So some officers, and then some people that family and friends talk very highly of. And I was like, well, let me pay honor and homage to, because when you know someone that you hold in high esteem, and they talk to you about someone that they hold in high esteem, even if you never meet that person, you put that person on a higher level, because you're like, if this superstar thinks they're a superstar, then there's just no other way, there's no way around about it. All right. Last thing. So, like I was saying, I think I understand why spouses of authors and writers don't do interviews regarding their spouse's work. I guess I get it. And in all fairness, you would need both parties to agree, right? Because even if the writer or author is like, yeah, I'm cool with it, I'm fine with it, the spouse might be like, no, I don't need people to be like, oh, that's Stephen King's wife, or that's Joy's, or whosoever's husband. You know what I mean? So I'm like, yeah, I guess I can understand, but I do. I'm a very special, quirky person, and I mean that as a negative as a possible way. But no, I that's why I think I would really get a kick out of my wife doing an interview with me, and it's funny because I call it an interview, but it's not. I don't think it's gonna be her interviewing me. Well, it'll probably be me interviewing her. If anything, it'll just be more than an interview. I think it'll just be a discussion between a couple, and the crazy dreams and thoughts that pop into the mind of this guy that's talking to you and looking you through a screen of whatever size, whether it's a phone that fits in your palm, or a MacBook, or whatever you use. I'm not against any laptop, Linux, whatever you use. Kudos to you, and thanks for watching. With that, thank you again for watching, and I want to always leave you guys with an inspirational quote, or at least a quote that I find inspirational. So, all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to write them. So whatever you can dream of, write it out. It'll be a fun journey. Again, have a great week, guys. Thanks for everything. Rightfully yours. It's been George Paredes.